Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Bilingual Wellness Hub. Thank you so much for tuning in and apologies for the delay. It's been very busy and I haven't had a chance to actually record the video, but today I would like to do the second chapter, right? And we're going to be talking today about the importance of breakfast and protein in the morning. As usual, I'll put my script in the comments box alongside a few videos that I encourage you to have a look at if you want to dig a little bit deeper into some of the topics that we're going to talk about. So for the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to cover that topic. So starting with the introduction, why breakfast matters. So there's an idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You've heard that many times, but actually this statement continues to be really well supported by all the emerging nutritional science that we're going to cover as well. Especially when it comes to the role of protein intake in the first hours of waking. This is really crucial. We'll explore that in the chapter. Starting the day with a really high protein meal is not only beneficial or essential, also for key physiological processes, including blood sugar regulation, appetite control, muscle maintenance, and cognitive performance. Okay, but what we're observing is that the most commonly skipped meal in the Western society is breakfast, right? And again, there's a difference between intermittent fasting and skipping breakfast, as we'll cover later on. Intermittent fasting has a lot of benefits as well. I've done that for many years. I love it. But it is a different kind of process than skipping breakfast because you don't have any time whatsoever. You just skip that meal because you don't have any time, but you don't plan around it. That's the biggest difference. And even for those who are taking the breakfast, they are doing it wrong in the sense that they are actually taking a very quick option, which is really high in sugar and starch, but very low in protein, right? Think about the toast with jam or commercial cereals, granola bars, just plain coffee, right? Coffee is good, but not as a single breakfast for sure. There's also a widespread misconception that breakfast doesn't matter. Again, maybe because of the issue with mixing that with intermittent fasting as well. But actually the composition, the quantity and the quality of the protein can make a really huge difference in your daily energy, focus, and metabolic resilience. So in this chapter, we'll look really closely at what happens when breakfast is skipped and what most people get wrong in the morning meals, and how a protein-rich breakfast can really lead to lasting benefits in physical, mental, and metabolic health. Right. Let's start with the common pitfalls, what most people eat and what's missing from that. Let's have a look again at what's, typical Western breakfast is. A lot of studies have shown that it's really high in refined carbs like white bread, sugary cereals or muffins, low in fiber and protein, low in essential micronutrients, and also often accompanied by sweetened beverages or just black coffee. So what that does, why it's not good, is because it actually spike blood glucose and insulin level really early in the day, and then lead to a crash in the energy, right? And then you're feeling hungry, like the mid-morning cravings that you probably have, right? And that does create for the body a pattern of glucose volatility. So when glucose levels go up and down whenever you have all these foods. And if you want to find out if you're suffering from that, the most common symptoms are morning fatigue or irritability, poor concentration or have a brain fog, increased cravings for sweets and processed snacks, and actually you get a higher total daily calorie intake in total, which is quite interesting actually. And there's a couple of studies that I will share also in the comments that shows that. And typically the people who are skipping breakfast entirely without, again, really planning for it, that's what that means is that, you have like a mid-morning overeating or snacking. And that used to happen to me actually before I took a very high protein breakfast. Around like, I have breakfast around like 5:30, 6 in the morning, and then towards like 10, I was like really, really starving. Since I've done my, protein, very high protein breakfast at still the same time, 5:30, 6 in the morning, I'm not hungry before probably like 1 or 2 p.m., right? So that really works. You have irregular hunger signals, you have reduced metabolic efficiency as well, as we'll cover later on as well. And there's a difficulty in controlling the portion size, later in the day. And portion size really, really does matter. Knowing when your body feels full and that you don't need to eat anymore is a really tricky thing to do, but it's really, really important, because actually when the body tells you that he's hungry, that means that he needs protein. So if you eat a lot of carbs and a lot of things that are not very low in protein, then you'll still feel hungry and you'll still carry on to eat. So then the total calorie intake is going to be massive. But if you start with a lot of proteins, then your body is very quickly, does tell you that it doesn't want any more food. Apologies. And you can carry on. So this is super important actually to know as well. And the way I see every meal, and breakfast in particular, is that's an opportunity to feed your body with protein, right? So, every single meal is an opportunity, is a new opportunity. Okay, what am I going to prepare my meal with? Which source of protein I'm going to use as well? Obviously, it's not only about protein. You have to have the fiber as well, which is very important. You have to have some carbs, obviously, as well at the same time. But knowing how to plan for that is extremely important as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the science behind morning protein, right? What the research do say as well. And protein is not just a macronutrient, it's a fundamental component of nearly every single structure and function in the human body, right? Enzymes, hormones, neurotransmitters, immune cells, and most notably, muscle tissue, as everyone knows. So when you consume protein at breakfast, protein plays a really central role in modulating many key processes that influence physical and mental performance throughout the day. So let's talk about the role of protein in metabolism. When you consume the protein, the body breaks it down into amino acids. If you remember from the first video, we covered that, 9 amino acids. If you remember that, that's good. And they're often used for building and repairing tissues, including the muscle, producing enzymes and hormones, supporting immune function, and maintaining metabolic flexibility. In morning is a particularly crucial time for protein consumption for 2 main reasons. First of all, you just come out of an overnight fast, right? So basically, you're waking up and your body is, has already broken down all the protein that you had at dinner, doesn't have anything more to break down into process, so it needs protein. And also the glycogen stores also are very depleted in your body, and the body needs fuel, right? And not just energy from carbs or fats, which are important, but raw material to rebuild and regulate essential systems. And what that is protein. The second reason is the muscle protein synthesis, right? So that's basically the process to create muscle, is most responsive in the morning. So especially when in older adults, eating protein early in the day can really help offset the natural decline in anabolic sensitivity. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about chrononutrition and the circadian clock. I really encourage you to go a little bit deeper into those topics. They are very interesting. I've discovered them quite recently, and they are very fascinating. It's basically your body clock, right? So every single organ of your body has got a clock to say when it is optimal to do, what they need to do, each organs, and then overall, the body has a circadian clock as well. So when it's daylight, for example, it knows that you have to, the day is starting, you have to eat, and then it's like a really fine-tuned machine where all your organs actually link to that clock as well. And it's kind of an emerging field, like chrononutrition is kind of an emerging field at the moment. And they do highlight the importance of aligning nutrient intake with the body natural clock, right? And morning is a biological active window where the cortisol and the insulin levels are really higher, and digestive enzymes are primed for nutrient uptake. Okay, and protein eaten at breakfast have been shown by many studies to improve glucose tolerance, stimulate thermogenesis, which is a process of calorie burning, and lead to greater fullness compared to the same amount eaten later in the day. There's a few key benefits of protein-rich breakfast. As we already mentioned, satiety and craving reduction. That's definitely, I encourage you to try that out. There's a study that did say that if you eat 30 or 35 grams of protein in the morning, that leads up to 400 fewer calories eaten throughout the day. Because again, you're full sooner, so you eat less, or you eat better quality food, right? That's the first advantage. The second one is a blood sugar stability. So again, as we spoken about before, because you have protein in the morning, enables you to have a lot more glucose control. So that's because the high protein meals do slow the digestion and absorption of carbs, leading to lower blood sugar spikes. It's for the carbs just also give you some blood sugar spikes, lower insulin responses, and less sugar crash effect, obviously, and reduced energy dips and mood fluctuations as well. This is something I was listening to recently as well, the impact of mood as well in protein in the morning, which is quite interesting. The other also impact is the energy and cognitive function as well at the same time. So people often report feeling sluggish or mentally foggy in the late morning, especially when breakfast is skipped or really carb heavy. And protein provides the necessary amino acids to support the neurotransmitter production, right? Which means that a well-balanced and protein-rich breakfast improves attention and memory, supports stable mood, and prevents the caffeine dependency as well cycles by offering steady kind of energy throughout the day. So you drink less coffee. Coffee is good, but you have to be careful not to drink too much. The other thing as well is weight management and fat loss. It sounds pretty obvious with everything we said before, but actually protein is known to be the most thermogenetic macronutrient, right? Which means that it requires more energy to digest, absorb, and metabolize compared to carbs or fat. So what that does is it contributes to an increase of the thermic effect of food, what is called TEF, and overall calorie expenditure. So basically that you have a higher calorie burn through digestion, you have reduced appetite and spontaneous calorie intake, preservation of lean body mass during weight loss as well, and increased fat loss when combined with resistance training as well, which is pretty important. We're going to talk about in a future video. Now let's talk about protein and muscle maintenance, but everyone knows about that as well, so I'm not going to take too much time as well on this. But actually what's important in the study has shown that muscle mass is a major predictor of longevity as well. So it's not about looking good and fit and muscled, it's also for longevity, right? To have a better quality of life later in the years. So there is something that's called sarcopenia, which you might have heard about. It's the natural age-related decline in muscle mass and strength. It begins as early as probably 40 years old as well, and accelerates every decade. I think I read that you're losing from 40 onwards, if you don't do anything, I think you lose about 8% of your muscle mass every single decade, right? But there are a lot of things that you can do to try to stop that, right? Well, not stop it completely, obviously, but reduce that as well a little bit as well. And that's again the high protein breakfast. Stimulates this muscle protein synthesis, as we discussed before. It's a lot more effective when eaten in the morning. It supports repair and recovery from daily physical activity, preserve strength and mobility, and reduce risk of falls, frailty, and insulin resistance. And actually, what I've read a lot about, and there's a few studies as well on that, is that combining morning protein intake with resistance exercise has really an effect on muscle maintenance, bone density, and functional health. And the advice is to do that a lot more as you age also, right? So increasing your protein intake and ensure that you combine that with resistance exercise in order to, not have 8% every decade, but reduce that as much as you can also. So next we're going to talk about protein distribution throughout the day. And actually, one of the most overlooked aspects of protein intake is how you distribute it throughout the day. Most people tend to eat very little protein at breakfast, moderate amounts at lunch, and a lot at dinner, okay? And what that does is provides an uneven pattern, and it doesn't really align on how the body must, effectively utilize that protein throughout the day. Again, it's back to the clock, right? You need a lot more for the breakfast to get through your day. And actually what the advice is to actually, spread it out as well, throughout the day, like a third as well of your protein. That's what you should be looking at as well. And there's a science behind it as well. The science research that suggests that actually 30 or 40 grams of protein per meal is great actually, but it's evenly spaced over the day. So to get greater muscle protein synthesis, improve satiety and blood sugar control, better weight regulation, and reduce the muscle breakdown in aging adults as well at the same time. Then I want to talk a little bit about daily and per meal protein needs as well, how much is enough. It's very difficult to give a real exact number because it depends on your age, your weight, your activity level, your muscle mass, and your health status. So I can't say, this is the number that you need to get. It depends on all of this. So you have to do a little bit of your research yourself as well. But there are some general guidelines. And the general guideline, as we said in the first video, is 0.8 gram of protein per kilo of your body weight. This is the minimum. So I wouldn't say that this is what you should be looking at. The optimal intake, which is, I think that's what you should be looking at, is more between 1.2 and 1.6 gram per kilo per day. So it's double the minimum intake. So pay attention to that one as well, right? So and then the other thing I want to talk about as well is if you're doing muscle gain, so if you wanted to get more muscle, or if you're recovering from an illness or a surgery, you can even go up to 2.2 grams per kilo per day as well. That will help you throughout as well. I've also done a bit of research to find out, is there any upper limit at all, right? And what I found is that I think up to 3 grams per kilo per day, which is huge, by the way. There's a few studies that have shown that to be safe, but for really healthy individual. So you have to be really careful with that as well. And always, as I always say, talk to a doctor before you do any kind of change of diet as well. Now, what I like to think about more is a per meal target, right? Every time I prepare a meal, I try to think about, do I have at least, for me, it's around 35 grams per meal is kind of the sweet spot. If I have more, that's great, but I shouldn't have less than that, right? But again, that's something, a calculation that you could be doing. So, you should be having a look at, spreading it into the 3, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we're coming up towards the end of the video now. I want to talk a little bit about the best protein sources in the morning, right? You can have, as we said in the first video, you can have animal-based products, or you can have also plant-based sources, and both are great. And I'm gonna give you that list as well in the comments. But animal-based protein as well, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, smoked salmon, cheese also, which is great. And plant-based protein sources as well. Remember that plant-based protein don't have full amino acid profiles, so you have to combine a little bit if you remember. But tofu, tempeh, lentils, edamame, which I love, hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, nut butters also, which I didn't know, I discovered recently, and it's pretty good actually as well. So, but try to think about the variation in your protein as well. Don't eat always the same thing. Try to vary a little bit as well and combine. I know it's a bit harder because you have to do a bit of planning, but spend a bit of time maybe on a Sunday to plan your week as well. It's a pretty good advice as well at the same time. I would add also a bit of like recipes as well. That's that you might need. I want to finish by talking a little bit about the lifestyle and nutritional consideration. One thing you need to know is that when you increase protein intake, it raises your need for water, especially when consuming more animal-based protein, right? So be careful. You have to drink, sufficient amount of water if you eat a lot of protein as well. So, the protein metabolism generates urea and nitrogenous waste, which the kidneys, do work more efficiently when water intake is adequate. So for the kidneys, pretty important to drink a lot of water as well. Your dehydration may impair digestion, leading to like bloating or sluggish metabolism as well. And actually what I discovered recently as well is that in the morning, super important, as soon as you wake up, the recommendation is to drink, half a liter, basically, half a liter of water upon waking is super, super good for you as well. And then after, you can carry on throughout the day as well at the same time. And the other thing I would say also, which might sound a bit, interesting, but when you have your breakfast, take your time. Use that also time to do some mindful eating, what I call mindful eating, which is, when you obviously take your phone away, 100%, you should not touch your phone as you wake up at all. But wake up, prepare your breakfast. I advise you to do that. You don't have to do it, but give it a shot. You wake up, no phone, you prepare your breakfast, you sit down with your breakfast as well, and you take small bites, and every time you take a bite, you put your spoon down, and you really take your time to chew and to eat like properly. You pause, briefly between your mouthful, and you try to feel when you're not hungry anymore as well at the same time, which is really, really interesting. And sit down, right? Don't eat on the move. You really sit down. Take that time for your little time of mindfulness in the morning. Is your breakfast as well at the same time. Try it out. Let me know how that's how that works as well for you. But again, with all the advice I gave you, it's very important also to see what works for you and to consult a medical professional, especially if you have any, allergy or special disposition as well. Because don't forget that all of this depends on your age, your sex, your physical activity, your health status as well, your digestive capacity or past surgeries. All of that can impact it. So it's pretty important to actually have the right amount of support as well. So this is it. This is the end of chapter 2. Apologies for the delay again in producing that video. In the next chapter, we'll explore how cholesterol actually works, which is something I've done a bit of study as well on that. What the science says about eggs, how to choose food that support your cardiovascular health. And we'll talk about the common myth as well around that. So until then, thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, like the video, send it to someone who could be, who could learn from that as well, who could help, because that's the only reason why I do it, is to help people as well. And with everything I've learned, I want to share. Caring is sharing, so that's what I do. Subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done that already, so that you're notified whenever I have time to record a video. And let me know in the comments, what you like, what you'd like to cover more in future episodes. And I thank you so much and have a really good day.